Hello, folks. Welcome to the show. Famous Liam Martin, the Exile Mind podcast, also broadcasting on Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Great to be here. Yeah, thanks very much for sort of tuning in. Not had a show for last, so we've been trying to fix a few streaming problems. I think we've got it sorted out now, but as it turns out, it seems I need to point out, for somebody mentioned something recent about the video. And yeah, the video is a bonus, folks. This is a beta test for a radio show. Maybe I've not made this clear. This show's a beta test for a radio show, and the point of me doing it is to try to encourage people to go and look these things up for yourselves. So while I appreciate feedback for and stuff, the video is not really kind of like relevant, and it's not always going to be there. I'm aiming towards not doing it. You know what I'm saying? So just in case anybody's sort of wondering, I'm not trying to do anything with this video stuff or jazzing it up, or it's not changing because it's not key. Do you know what I'm saying? And you got to look these things up. The whole point of it, you can't just listen to me or some other whoever. You know what I'm saying? It's really important. You must look these things up. That's why the links are there, and that's why I do this. You've got to do it yourself. Okay, make sure you do it yourself. But anyway. Yeah, enough of that. Yes, Exile Minds podcast. Got a show today. Season 2 of it. I don't know how many we've got going on so far. But yeah, I've got a bit of a backlog to do. So I'm going to do some pre-recorded ones as well. Again, referencing the radio station. I'm going to start doing some pre-recorded ones that are only going to be on there. So get yourself over to a browser, like when you do your research. Just type Troubled Minds Radio Network. And it'll come up. And yeah, there's a few people on there. They've got Salcedo Paranormal, got Arcane Observer, Paranormal and Prowl. A few more things coming up. So you get yourself over there, folks. It's going to take off out of nowhere. You'll see, and you'll be like, what at the beginning of all of that? But anyway, on with the show. Got a show that I've been meaning to do all year, actually. I'm not sure how to approach it. So today's show is basically we're going to be doing. I've got this notion of doing. Okay, so I want to show about an earthquake repulsor. using phonic crystals. So it's a bit of a, I didn't know what it was, but what it basically is, this show today, we're going to have a look at earthquakes and the kind of technologies that are used to try and prevent earthquakes or to mitigate the damage, and some new technologies that have come out. And it was based on, it was actually Teal Swan. Teal Swan is one of those sort of spiritual gurus, best-selling author, and there's tons of free videos out there that are like self-help videos. But she happened to mention doing a prediction at the beginning of the year that this could be the first year with crowd support that we might be able to highlight some of these technologies that are being looked at to try and diffract earthquakes. Using refraction, we can like negate the sound waves and cancel them out, sort of thing, and the ultrasound. So I thought we'll have a look at that today. So for the video, if you don't just, but saying you've got to look these things up, folks. Seriously, but anyway, that's the name of the lady. She's pretty famous if you're into that sort of circles. But yeah, Teal Swan, check her out, YouTube, links in the description. And yeah, so we've got to do it. So she's mentioned this way to perhaps use modern technologies to do something really great, like stop earthquakes and stuff. Sounds like stuff for the future kind of thing, but then, as I keep saying, we're in the future. You won't believe how much the technologies have moved on unless it's been advertised to you, or you've gone out your way to look these things up, and you're not going to know. Not going to know. So this is why we do these things, and to signpost other folk that haven't heard of it. You find something interesting, these are signposts, man. Go and look for yourself, because you're bound to find something. Or even if you read the exact same thing as me, you're going to think something different. You're going to find something else. And I'm going to. That's how you got to do it. There's a lot of work to do. So that's the only reason I'm doing this. There's a lot of work to do. I got other things I could be doing. I don't be on camera. You know what I'm saying? But we've got to pull together, folks. You can't. I'm telling you, don't be relying on politicians to pull your ass out of the fire, because it won't happen. But anyway, let's have a look then. So yeah, earthquake repulsor. But that's all we can do. So let's have a look then. What I started off by asking the AI and seeing what this is. What is sound diffraction for starters? So what the sound diffraction is? Sound diffraction refers to the bending or spreading of sound waves as they like encounter an obstacle or try to pass through it, through like open barriers. It's when they encounter sound obstacles such as a wall or an edge of something, it will tend to bend around it and spread out on the other side. So this bending and spreading of sound waves is known as a diffraction. So you can bend these things sort of around. It's a bit like the phenomenon whereby you can perhaps not hear your neighbours next door. Maybe you hear them talking, it's a bit muffled, but if you open a window and theirs is open, kind of like, even though you're not standing in the room, you're no closer, but it can kind of like bend around the wall, go out of the window, come in your window. It sounds a bit sort of louder. So I thought, well, let's have a look at this. Is it possible, this generally bending sound waves, the length of them and how short they are, and diffracting those short waves that are at higher frequencies and whatnot. So I thought, well, can we... is there something about this? Is there ways to do it? Okay, so there's research for it, though, turns out. So this is why I want to point this out again, so people can look these things up yourselves. So you've read it, so you've got your experiential learning, and then you know about this stuff. So then, because the other thing as well, this is it. If you're going to learn stuff like this, and if you're saying stuff that's going to perhaps challenge the narrative, yeah, getting out the matrix kind of stuff, if you need a command of this stuff, you need a command of the information that's your own command of the information, right? If you just listen to a podcast or listen to a radio show and remember one line and use that to spar with someone like a soundbite, if they know about that topic, they're going to pick you apart. right? You've got, especially if they're a skeptic and stuff, and you're bringing something a little bit wild, they're going to pick you apart. So you must have a handle on these things yourself. So if that happens and someone tries to troll you on the spot, you'll be able to say, hey, well, there's this. You need to reach other people on an intellectual adult to adult level. You're not doing adult to adult. There's something not right. Okay, this stuff's important. So do your homework. Me laser, or I'm taking the video away. But yeah, it's a radio show. And so this is like words and ideas and entering the discussion. So you must check this stuff out yourself. Anywho. Anyway, yeah, so this is the sound waves then associated with seismic waves. This way we get to the refraction. Because the spreading the waves, let's say, can be observed, the sound becomes audible in areas that it would otherwise, there would be an acoustic shadow of the obstacle, like say on the back of the wall. So, for example, like say you hear someone talking around a corner, so you've got that. So I checked with AI to see if it kind of know about this stuff, see if it's got a way it can use diffraction to mitigate earthquakes. And the response was that it basically saying you didn't think you could do it. The diffraction phenomenon was related to the propagation of sound waves, whereas earthquakes are seismic waves, caused by the movement of the Earth's tectonic plates. Right. So on the very surface, why you have to do your homework? On the very surface, it looks like, well, this can't even happen. But if it can't even happen, then why are people looking into it? Okay. So let's learn to understand it. Earthquakes are generated by the release of energy in the Earth's crust, leading to seismic waves which travel through the ground. These waves consist of both the primary wave, the first wave, the P wave, and then the secondary aftershock wave, the S waves, which are different from sound waves, right? And so in it, is it related? No, it is. Yes. Sound diffraction techniques, it says, are not applicable for mitigating the control of earthquakes because the energy associated with seismic waves is orders of magnitude greater than that of sound waves. So earthquakes require comprehensive measures, measured focused, including so they're focusing on, this is the point. So when the conventional technologies are only going to be looking at things like improving the structure. So they're looking at comprehensive measures that can focus seismic engineering on buildings where they can make the buildings more sturdy, basically implementing proper foundation designs and seismic isolators, dampening technologies, that sort of thing. Now that's what we've got normally. But so usually we're using things like say dampening support structures. We're using carbon fiber paints to sort of flex a bit more, that sort of thing. But I'm interested in, can we kind of stop it? So while sound waves and seismic waves do share some properties that are related, as in wave behavior, they're fundamentally different in terms of the energy, the wave scale effects. Therefore, controlling sound diffraction cannot be used to negate or control earthquakes. That's what the AI for. It's not got the latest information though, but that's what it's for. But then you don't know, does it? You don't know. It's just a language program. So chewing up the data. So you've got to poke it a little bit. So I think, right, well, screw it. Same thing again, as actually it brings up the point. Because when I first started using the computer, before I would normally I would look stuff up. I would read a book. Yeah, I'm going to do a thing. I could do, with an AI, you can type it in this language model. You can say, oh, tell me about this. I want to know what's Hinduism, whatever. And it will tell you about it. And then you're not going for that act of typing. You're not going for that act of writing things down with a piece of paper. When you use a pen and piece of paper, it works on a different part of your brain, different part of your memory, right? So if you learn martial arts, you can learn that visually, and you can learn that with your eyes closed by feel of your body. But that works on a completely different set of your brain for writing things down. So that's why I tell you to write down the moves. Okay, so yeah, you got to learn. You've got to keep doing it. Anyway, so you can't just rely on a computer to just spit out, do the research for you. It can do it and it'll do it fast, but you're the human, you're the leader. You need to go through the process still. Yeah. And it's only through doing that you're going to see the side channels. If you just sit in front of a text block, you're not going to get very creative with that. And even the AI says that. Don't rely on that. So anyway, so I'm like, yeah, well, I know about this. I know about these phonic crystal situations, and the computer don't know about it, even though it had its cut-off time for the data. It was known of then, but he hadn't put it together. He hadn't put it together, right? So I told him about it because he don't know about it, and the AI was like, actually, yeah, maybe it could work, right? So anyway, let's have a look. Let's have a look at this. I'll just read this. I've got a couple of articles to sort of share with you. I just wanted to explain, with the process, because the computer's thinking a bit kind of like standard. Earthquakes cover a large area and vast amounts of energy. So some kind of effective system probably have to be huge, and and it will go for all the things. But so this guy was in the AI was like, is responsible. Like, well, phonic crystals are made of materials engineered to manipulate and control the propagation of elastic waves, including sound waves and mechanical vibrations. All right. So he knows about it, but it's like, no, it's mechanical. Is that they're designed for periodic arrangements and different materials with band gaps, which are frequency ranges that certain waves cannot propagate through. Band gap, like I can't get over there's no bridge there for it. While phonic crystals are shown to have promise in applications such as acoustic isolation, wave guides, as in being able to direct things like ultrasound and operations and stuff. Using them to mitigate earthquakes, still largely theoretical and not a practical solution. The idea you mentioned using phonic crystals made from aluminium rods embedded in water, that's what I told him to do. That's how you do it, lad. You need some phonic crystals, lad, on aluminium rods embedded in water. I told him. And he was like, well, that's an interesting concept. The intention would be to create a structure that disrupts or absorbs the seismic waves, reducing their energy, preventing the propagation. However, there are several challenges and limitations to consider. Like, say, the size of it, the coverage, any energy absorption, the structural complexity. Designing and implementing practical systems of phonic crystal systems capable of mitigating earthquakes would be highly complex. That's what he was probably come up with. And he also says, oh yeah, environmental and logistics factors too. The installation, maintenance, and large-scale systems, in earthquake-prone regions would present significant logistical challenges and potential environmental impacts. So he's thinking, worst-case scenario stuff. So I thought, well, okay, fair enough. That's the analytical thing, the naysayer angle. But let's see what they're talking about, because this stuff's out there. So let's have a look. And this is why you got to look it up and read it and learn it. So if you think it's viable, then you can share it with people. And I think this is viable. That's why I'm sharing it with you, so that you can read it yourself. So if you think it's viable too, then that's two of us on Twitter going, let's use this and put funding in it, because it could stop tsunamis and earthquakes. Anyway, so from the article, this is from one of those it's a research article, University of North Texas Research and Innovation, from April 26, 2021. So this University of North Texas, researchers in the University of North Texas, researchers are gaining attention in the physics world for the discoveries that could lead to new methods of mechanically reflecting sound and other vibrations, such as earthquakes. Potential applications of their acoustic shield range from removing traffic noise to enabling interception-free private communication to protecting buildings from earthquakes, tsunamis, or ultrasonic attacks. Okay, I'll highlight this bit. The technology is the main point. There's a diagram. If you look this stuff up, you can you need to research this stuff. Learn how to do it. So the technologies uses phonic crystals made from aluminium rods embedded in water, which is what I described to the computer, which are symmetrically arranged. They can be rotated to completely reflect waves, including sound. These crystals have been studied for their use in transmitting and reflecting sound, but only across narrow ranges of frequencies and only with moderate amounts of control. Researchers from the University of North Texas, UNT, Department of Physics, are demonstrating that phonic crystals are partially submerged in fluid that can be used to reflect sound of almost completely by rotating them randomly instead of keeping them in an ordered pattern. This design allows for manipulating the sound from perfect transmission to perfect reflection. Physics professor Akandale Krokhin says, if you rotate the rods in the same direction, you will get a device that can transmit sound with almost perfect transmission. But then if you rotate them randomly, you get perfect reflection. And I suppose in a manner of, I'm trying to visualize in my head, in a sort of manner of speaking, it's a bit like you're disrupting, the disruption of it could be seen, you could imagine that something similar to, is not quite the same, but there's a defense for an arrow attack. If you're on a horseback and someone shoots an arrow at you, that's going to get you. But if you wear a little parachute on your back with a little hole in it so it don't drag you off, it seems like a crappy defense. There's a little bit of cloth waving around on your back, but it works because it just disrupts the energy of the arrow enough. So an arrow needs to go nice and straight and whoosh. But if it gets disrupted a bit by a bit of cloth, it just takes all the sting out of it. So you can think of it a bit like that. So yeah, random movements. I think that was the key with this, is that you've got this arrangements of rods that can also kind of move around. It's a bit like table football. If there's a bit of a pattern, you can like work off the structure, but when all players are moving random, it kind of messes it all up. So that was a bit of a funny one. But anyway, yeah, carrying on with the article. So yes, you get near perfect reflection or perfect transmission or near perfect reflection. So this can be localized then, by the sounds of it. That's what I thought was interesting. And you can, if you've got forewarning of earthquakes, maybe you can sort of do something about it. So the crystals can be arranged so that sound will pass through them normally up to a certain level, but then when reaching a threshold, it will be reflected. This will allow for almost 100% control of noise acoustically. So that's like having a noise gate, literal noise gate around, using this technology. So could you set up a noise gate around the city? Interesting. This crystal would act to cut off sound, like a noise gate. When it is weak, noise passes through. But if the noise becomes loud, like a bang, then this crystal will not pass it through, or not allow it through. The cylinders could surround a space where sound or vibration is unwanted. Inside the structure, sound would be localized or delocalized, depending on how the crystal was rotated. This means a person in the middle would hear less or nothing at all, depending on the desired effect. The research recently published chosen as an editor's pick in the Journal of Applied Physics. Well, if it's been chosen as an editor's pick in the journal, that's like making it a cover spread. You know what I mean? That's going to be one of the main articles. So Journal of Applied Physics, they're quite prestigious. So there's a lot of promise of this by the looks of it. Well, it just kind of looks like it's about to sort of say this. Yeah, the fact it was in the editor's pick of the Journal of Applied Physics proves that it's possible to create a device that is tunable to different frequencies with strong localization, also known as Anderson localization, by using disordered or random placements of rods. Other related research from the team was recently published in Proceedings of the Royal Society, another prestigious journal there, and Physical Review Research. So, yeah, it's been peer reviewed. It's been peer reviewed, and like I say, editor's pick and a Journal of Applied Physics. And it's saying here, continuing the article, sound waves are audible sounds in the air. Not there. But yeah, sound waves are audible sound in the air a few meters long. So crystals will work optimally in large spaces, not indoors in a classroom. Researchers say a device would be ideal in outdoor spaces like parks, neighborhoods, to block off the traffic sounds and other sources of noise. Maybe it's really noisy in the city. So it's not just about earthquakes. Like I say, this technology, this particular one, it's got a lot of uses, but obviously, that'd be a life-saving one. You get the earthquake side of things sort of looked at a bit, and then that would be really, really cool. But anyway, I've got to take a quick break now. So a couple of minutes late, so I had to run over a couple of minutes for break time, but we're about there now, so I'm going to drop in a bit more music. It's just a quick little break, and then we'll be back. Exomine's podcast, talking about some more technologies to potentially get rid of earthquakes or mitigate the damage quite a lot. So we'll see how that goes. Just a few minutes, back after the break on a Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, Liam Martin, Exile Minds podcast. Back in a moment. Yo. Welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Wow, I forgot how to do this stuff, but I thought I did. But seems I remember how to do it again. So, yeah, welcome back to the show. Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP. I've even got chatters. Wow, look at that, look. It's as if I didn't even told anyone. I didn't know if my stream was going to work, but we got JT. Greetings. Welcome. We've got, see, I mentioned some of the crew earlier. We've got Serena, Pro Norman and Proud, APOC, Apocalypse Tau. Nice to see you. Troubled Minds Radio. Oh my God, Troubled Minds. The main guy. Oh my God. Main dude. All right, then. Yeah, check it out. It's going to blow up. I'm not just saying that because I'm going to be going on it, but it's going to be huge. I'm telling you. You'll see. Mark my words. Anyway, back on with the show. Let's have a look at so far we've covered. I've completely threw my script out the window, by the way. You might have noticed, but yeah. So we've had a look at these Phonic crystal repulsor things, right? This refraction technology. We found one that was got has got a bit of kudos in some of the peer-reviewed journals there, say Editor's Pick and Journal of Applied Physics, which is pretty good. So I went for a look because G-Dog, look, the AI, it can do a lot of good stuff, man. It's like a butter, but it can't do everything. It needs a driver. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, yeah. So I got thinking, right, because that Anderson effect that I mentioned, that's getting used for ultrasound as well to localize stuff. But I thought, no, there's more. There's another way. I know there's more to this. So I went scratching around, and I had this idea about, because I remember reading. There's a bit of a story, but I remember that I used to have this book. Right, I used to listen to this trance music. I used to talk about stuff around the world. It's like these weird topic stuff, but they used to have an opportunity they used to make these booklets with it, with these trance albums. So they could tell you stuff about shamanism, tell you stuff about crystals and healing. So a way to slide information to people. And there was one of them that was talking about a book. There's a fictional book, but it was about the pyramids of Giza and about a UFO being underneath of it, and that the pyramids are there as like paperweights to balance the planet out. Do you know what I'm saying? And it turns out it was talking about earthquakes. I thought I'd go on a side thread because, just tapping text with AI is not going to get this. But look, check this out. Turns out this random idea that, just a little side note, this random idea that, pyramids might be there to somehow help balance the earth. I got wondering about, it's like mountains near earthquakes, isn't it? So I had a look at to see if that was a thing. If pyramids are like mountains are there to like alleviate energy on the planet. Turns out people have looked into this. Eartheclipse.com, Science and Geography. Earth Eclipse have literally got an article. Do mountains cause or prevent earthquakes? It's not quite on our stuff, on a technology to try and mitigate earthquakes. But I thought, isn't that strange? Just shows, doesn't it? So let's just read it a bit. But just remember, this came from psychedelic trance albums in the 90s, trying to slide knowledge to people like us. 20 years later, I look it up. Turns out it's a thing. Anyway, let's read it. Just for fun. Just for the fun of it. We're all aware that the topography of an area has an impact on the occurrence of earthquakes. Mountains have proven to be slightly helpful when it comes to preventing earthquakes. So the other thing, Russians were supposed to have built a bunch of pyramids, and it was helping to mitigate earthquakes. As one of them, conspiracy, maybe juice things. Shouts out to Mike. So yeah, that's why I pulled on this thread. Anyway, moving on. Mountains have proven to be slightly helpful when it comes to preventing earthquakes. Mountains have the ability to direct the earthquakes to another region, or they tend to become more powerful than the original magnitude. Okay, so when the tectonic plates that form the biggest mountains collide, earthquakes happen. After an earthquake takes place, several different events take place that are also very destructive to our environment. The effects of the following reunion events depend on the magnitude of the earthquake. When an earthquake has hit highly populated regions, they are of bigger magnitude. Okay. There have been a few studies showing the effects and the size of the tectonic plates of the existence of earthquakes. Many researchers consider earthquakes and mountains to be of the same family. This is because the forces that contribute to pushing up the mountains are the ones that cause the earthquakes. With the advancement in technology, researchers have gotten better with the facts that they provide us. They are currently researching the topics of the effects of the seafloor, mountain crashes, and earthquakes. Some consider them to be great prevention of earthquakes. Okay. Do mountains stop earthquakes? Mountains are considered to be the nail that holds the earth together. They do seem significant. This process is known as isostasy. Isostasy, man. So isostasy This is the process of stabilizing the Earth using the stress of gravity from the mountains. Oh. Like Buckminster Fuller and his geodesic domes. They haven't got any fixings. It's gravity that pulls them in using the correct geometry to like squeeze it in together. So that is interesting for me. I like this kind of thing. You do too. But yeah, got to pull these threads. So yeah, they're major players then. Major players. You must be wondering why mountains start existing from the ground. No, they start existing from underneath the sea only. These sea mountains are most popular for blessing us with the powerful stabilizing Earth. Another main thing you should know is that they are extinct volcanoes. There's a lot of processes going in there. I know it gets complicated, but I just thought that was an interesting. Isn't it strange that this like random book that was recommended in the 90s in this trance album, then later on, probably 12 years later, Russians trying to build these pyramids. It's yeah, and then so I look at this and find this. Look, let's go to these. I've got this other article here. So get this: there's other attempts to mitigate earthquakes, and one of them, this one's got a lot of promise as well. Steps towards seismic cloak. A seismic cloak. This is from physics.aps.org. Basically, just called physics APS. Links in the description. One of those general sciencey places. Pinyin Sheng. Steps towards a seismic cloak in the Department of Physics at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. So they've got something else, which I'll just quickly check. See who's in this chat here. See if there's any comments on this. Right, cool, we're all good. Okay, yeah. So this next one, bearing in mind that idea that the mountains might be a sort of energy forces, or they might be sort of responsible, and now it looks as if people are looking at this. Mountains help stop earthquakes. But I found this one was a really interesting idea. Instead of using rotating rods and a big kind of like megastructure and isolators to capture, these guys have come up with an idea where you can make a seismic cloak. So this is from Department of Physics at Hong Kong University Science and Technology in Kowloon Bay, Hong Kong in China. And this is from like 2014. And this is quite a while. So I've been looking at this stuff for a bit. So with this idea, it's almost like, so I bring it up with the mountains and the pyramid idea. It's almost like doing the reverse of this, because these guys are talking about drilling very strategic boreholes around an area. So when the waves come along, it's putting those I mentioned earlier with band gaps. It's basically put boreholes everywhere at specific spaces for how long seismic waves are generally going to be. And then it should like not be able to transmit any further. A bit like when you burn dead wood from the forest, and it helps to prevent forest fires later on. So let's check it out then. Let's have a look at this one. So a step towards a seismic cloak. A large-scale experiment shows that a periodic array of boreholes embedded in the soil can deflect the energy of an incoming seismic wave. So links are in the description, so you can read about this yourself. But it gives an image of a region with these strategic boreholes, basically holes in a grid around an area, and then where the waves would sort of propagate to the next bit, it gets cut off. But like I say, you can look this stuff up yourself, which you definitely should. But I'll just read the article. So phonic crystals, it's talking about them as well. But so phonic crystals and metamaterials are man-made structures that can control sound and light in ways not found in nature. Whereas the properties of phonic and photonic crystals derive from derive from the periodicity of the structure, the very periodic, like crystals repeating patterns. In those metamaterials arise a collection of effects of large array of small resonators. Okay, so these effects can be used to manipulate acoustics, electromagnetic waves in unconventional ways, realizing functions such as invisibility cloaks, sub-wavelength focusing, and unconventional refraction phenomenon such as negative refraction index and phase velocity. So this is where it sounds complicated if you don't read the science thing and you're not. No, it's the words. Trust me, it is only the words you've got to get past. So let's say it again. I'll say this. I'll make a point of this because when I was a youth, when I was a lad, I was encouraged to do science instead of art, like I wanted to do. And I was supposed to be good at it. But when I got there and found it was all speaking in Latin, I felt so stupid. Because there's usually these massive words I never heard of. I couldn't even spell them. I was rubbish at spelling and writing. I was like, oh my God, I'd never do this. I felt so stupid. But then you realize it's just words. It's just words. Yeah, get the blue stuff. Just mix it with water. And that's all it means. Like a big whole paragraph to say, pick that test tube or mix that with the water. Seriously. So just try and make it sound. They try and make themselves to sound. They have to use these words, but it can get us thinking that we're not smart enough, and it's just not true. So let's go back. Let's go do it again. So I have to read it, help you get smart, help you feel smart, and that's the main thing. So don't do that learn helplessness that we're getting trained with. Anyway, going back, let's read that last bit again. These effects can be used to manipulate acoustic and electromagnetic waves, so sound and everything else. Electromagnetic waves is about everything. So you can affect them in weird ways, all right? Realizing functions like invisibility cloaks, yeah. Sub-wavelength focusing, don't even know what that even means, what you could do with that. And unconventional refraction phenomenon, such as negative refraction index, as in, get rid of it altogether. Negative, so that could completely negate all sound, right? By the sounds of it, it could be like vibranium or something. But say that'd be so good for the earthquake situation and the ultrasound, and maybe that Havana syndrome stuff, whatever the hell that is, and there's a lot of places that have got a kind of hum going on, and it's not the regular Schumann resonance and there's stuff going on. Anyway, moving on with the article. Recent work has started to explore another intriguing domain of application, using similar concepts to control the propagation of seismic waves within the surface of the Earth. Now the research group at the Sébastien Guénère at the Aix-Marseille University and French National Centre for Scientific Research, CNRS, has teamed up with the civil engineers at an industrial company known as Maynard, and that's in Nozay in France. They carried out the largest scale test to date of seismic metamaterials. The reported experimental results are encouraging. Yeah. That's what I was going to get at. Yeah, it says the reported experimental results are encouraging. An artificial structure built around the target can be used to deflect incoming acoustic waves of frequencies relevant to earthquake protection. This preliminary success in the laboratory could one day translate into a way of mitigating these destructive effects of earthquakes. When an earthquake occurs, seismic waves are created by slip zones deep below the Earth's surface, with the underground waves, which can be longitudinal waves, the P waves, or transverse waves, the S waves, meet on the surface. Part of their energy is converted into waves that propagate along the Earth's surface. These surface waves, also called Rayleigh waves, are usually observed in a frequency range of less than 1 Hz to a few tens of hertz. Since the higher frequency components are more effectively attenuated during wave propagation, they have a much slower speed, hence a smaller wave than the underground waves, and are usually more destructive. can such seismic surface waves be deflected, cloaked, or even blocked, so it can protect certain areas from destructive effects? I mean, even if you just did it for like nuclear facilities, you know what I'm saying, so they melt down, it's definitely worth pursuing. But I think by the looks of, the borehole idea, that's a really good idea. That's a really good idea, because that's physically, you can't really work around that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know if we want any more sinkholes. But that's another thing. I mean, do we even know? This is another thing. What about all mining oil? What if the planet's alive? What if we're creating sinkholes? What if it needs oil for lubrication? It's all weird, isn't it? It's all weird. Gets a bit funky. But what we know for now is earthquakes happen, people get hurt, and there's some opportunities to maybe get rid of some. Physical boreholes is a good idea. Although the AI that I'm using didn't really like I think it was kind of possible. This dude don't know about the metamaterials. Can't quantify that and put it together. That's why we have to do it. It's why we have to have the conversation. We have to do the sort of looking up with this. So it looks promising. But let's have a look at this one as well. So we've got the borehole one idea. We've got the rotating aluminium rods in water idea. I think it's totally been done. And then these guys here, if I just cover this one last article before we sort of wrap up. There's another idea from Zurich as well. Where this is from Open Mind BBVA. So on the Science and Environment section, can earthquakes be stopped? So yeah, I mean, we've got the borehole idea. We've got the using those aluminium refractors on rods, creating random scatter patterns. But then from Open Mind BBVA, we have an article from 24th of August 2016. Oh, sorry. It's referring to in this article, it refers to on the 24th of August 2016, there was an earthquake of magnitude 6, left 281 people dead, 388 injured in central Italy. So this is what's inspired the researchers and idea of can we try and stop this. So the article reads, for millennia, protection against earthquakes has put the focus on how to construct buildings strong enough to withstand the shaking. Okay, so we've been doing that for a while. We've used what? We've used springs, bearings, padded parts. In Tokyo, the city with the greatest earthquake protection on the planet, one finds the latest innovations. The Japanese construct their buildings with materials that absorb the shocks, such as steel, and in addition, they are clad with dampers, bases of rubber and iron. The dampers are columns underneath, bases of rubber and iron, or the between pillars on the ground. The goal is to have 100% of the buildings and urban infrastructure fitted with anti-seismic measures. All right, you want to retrofitting and stuff, but building a city that will not collapse in the event of a major earthquake. In Spain, a group of researchers at the University of Granada have created some energy dissipating devices that concentrate the damage in case of an earthquake so that the main structure, being more pillars, remain elastic without damage. Could we construct, construction, again, it's more sort of like looking at new construction techniques. But it's, but it goes on to say here, as you might not realize, we've got these things to use. However, far from these being commonplace approaches, other research groups have set a new goal of modifying the ground in order to prevent the quakes from reaching the cities in the first place. So rather than putting dampeners and stuff on the building, they want to do stuff a bit like the borehole thing. We create a shield around it. So these ideas range from strategic boreholes, as we mentioned, in key locations, or placing metal rods in specific points on the ground, or, get this, planting trees. Who'd have thought? Planting trees, right? One of the most active groups in the new approach is the Fresnel Institute of Marseille in France, led by Sébastien Guénenou. Don't know if that's how I say his name, but that's why you should look it up in French. Anyway, His main idea is to control how the ground reacts to the arrival of seismic waves, to convince that waves themselves can be modified. They can. We've seen it with the metamaterial stuff. So he's right. He can. To achieve this, it was inspired by the King's College with the metamaterials, artificial substances created to have unique properties not found in nature, which we just covered. The metamaterials that allow for objects to be made invisible and redirecting light, so that the human eye does not detect it, sort of thing. Old Harry Potter invisibility cloak. So he's looking at that, and the first attempt was simply to bore holes in the ground, as I mentioned, but then it was trying to mimic the sort of seismic waves. Then they found the vibrations stopped upon reaching the second row. However, they managed to stop mini earthquakes. They still had a problem with this system acting like a mirror as it bounces the seismic waves back with twice the power. In other words, if this technique were used to protect a hospital, the houses that surround the tremor would suffer twice as much than expected. So you kind of need an open shot area to send it to. You got to send it somewhere. However, I like this one though. Just before we wrap up the show here on the Exo Minds podcast, I want to try and stay on radio clock stuff. But yeah, here's an approach. Look, so I mentioned trees earlier. Why not? These approaches could be combined by adding one of the last elements, trees. It has been found that the presence of large trees can modify seismic waves. So another proposal is to plant trees around the cities to protect them. Of course. That would work brilliant, wouldn't it? That worked brilliant. Big fat tree roots, loads of them. That work a tree. I can just see it in my head. I can see the waves propagating now and getting killed. Do you know what I'm saying? You're thinking, doesn't it? We've cut a lot of trees down, haven't we? And maybe nature had it all figured out. We're kind of messed up. And now we've only got thin, skinny trees, haven't we? We don't have big fat trees anymore. So then we have to flip our lumber the opposite way when we do flooring because it's the wrong way. Not big enough. Anyways, trees, which reminds me of a show I want to do soon. Actually, that does it. There's a show about. There's a book called Dead Man's Secrets, Jonathan Gray, about ancient technologies is better than ours. And look at that, trees. That probably would work. I can't believe it. That's simple as well. So I think, that's just reminding me for that show. We'll do a show about ancient technologies better than this. That's going to be in about 5 or 6 shows time because I've got some to catch up on. But yeah, can you stop earthquakes? Maybe with some funky metamaterials, maybe by drilling holes in the ground, but maybe, just maybe, by planting some trees. So that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? A slap in the face to scientists and progress and whatnot. But yeah, let's plant some trees. I said let's do it. Keep telling us about the environment and stuff. That's the thing as well when they're planting trees. They're throwing carbon credits at people while planting trees and tell us to buy a tree. Anyway, there's another story. Anyway, I've got to wrap up the show because I'm supposed to try and keep it tight, trying to be pro. I kind of forgot how to do this stuff, but it looks as if I might have it. Just about figured out. But yeah, it's not crashed, so that's progress. This is a bit of a trial today. I've fixed a few things, so yeah, hopefully we'll be back on top. But anyway, thanks very much for tuning in, folks. Exo Minds podcast. Me, famously, and Martin. Make sure you tell all your friends about the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. It's going to get bigger and bigger. So yeah, come check it out. Come and join the Discord, Troubled Minds Discord, and join the group. Come and be a part of the gang. And I'll catch you next time, probably tomorrow night then if I've got it working. So, Liam Martin, Exo Minds podcast. See you very soon. Tomorrow.